Do you guys think there's any use case in simulating AA transactions?
Which transactions?
Account abstraction.
Is it
in
that
Pectra,
something that you can do right away?
well, it's going to be in Pectra, and we merged the PR, and it's being kind of tested right now. And I figured that we had to add it to ETH call and ETH estimate gas. I just figured that it would be useful for users to be able to simulate these kind of transactions. So
I'm not aware of that. I thought those abstraction transactions are kind of like normal. They are meta transactions, but then they are landing on chain as normal transactions.
right,
Like
so
with
that's
type 2.
337. That's like off-chain kind of account abstraction. But now there's this EIP that Micah shared in the chat where you will have some of those features built into the protocol. So there will be a new transaction type, and it will be possible to kind of set code for EOAs.
Okay. That's a new transaction type, I guess. It's
Yeah,
like 4.
I guess 4 or 5. Wait, isn't it 5?
4.
There's set
It's
code.
4.
What is
4,
3?
okay. Blob.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh, I thought the blobs are just normal type 2, but I guess they're type 3.
Yeah, they're type 3.
Okay. Well, of course, then we need to support the transaction type.
As
Is
well.
that included in the next hard fork?
Yes, that's the plan.
But then isn't those are basically automatically included because we are including all the transaction types, like what EVM is supporting, or is there something else that we need to add to that?
So I think basically it will come down to adding like to the arguments that we allow. But basically, users should be able to submit the authorization list from this EIP. This is saying that they allow some code to be run in their context.
But we are including all the transactions in the specs that we are not specifying that we only allow the 3 transaction type, we allow all of them. So I think this should be included kind of automatically in the spec.
Not exactly. We do need to add this extra parameter, I think.
Which one?
It's called authorization list.
Isn't it part of the transaction body though? It's like, I believe it is. Yeah, it's part of the RLP of the transaction. So I think since we accept any transaction that is a valid transaction on the network that you're on, this will automatically, per spec, exactly. This will automatically be picked up.
Not exactly, because we don't, like, the parameter is not the transaction type itself. It's some last version of the transaction.
Right, I'm saying the way the spec is written, I believe any transaction type that is valid on the network is valid, and whatever
I see.
Whatever that includes gets included. So we don't say like this is the EIP 1559. We just say include a transaction here, and it will be interpreted by the EVM the way the EVM interprets that type of transaction.
Gotcha. So
yeah, I don't think this regards any change to the spec.
In clients, though, it might require changes depending on how everybody implemented things. So you still should probably make sure you have tests for it at the very least.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it also changes the output of each simulate because this transaction type is shown there, and then we need to show those parameters.
We don't just specify like an opaque kind of transaction output goes here.
No, we don't. But I mean, in the spec it doesn't change anything, but in the clients it will kind of return a bit different stuff.
Yeah, I guess. Wait, do we add something to the blog header?
When is this going to be included? Is there any estimates? Is it ready in all of the clients already?
I think all of the clients have this included, and so the new DevNet is going up in a week or two.
No. So it's quite near. Like
But it's a DevNet. On mainnet, it's going to be
yeah.
Q1.
Yeah, of course there can be issues with other stuff, but yeah, then it's probably it's going to be included in a half a year.
So earlier, but yeah, at some point where we can start doing some tests on it.
Yeah, if the various clients already have it implemented, I mean, I think it seems reasonable to add a few tests for it at least to the Hive tests.
Well, at the moment, I probably cannot generate tests like this because the Get doesn't support it right away.
Oh, I see.
So
Yeah,
I can add test, but then it all are kind of that's one thing I don't like about our test pipeline, that I cannot add that kind of test that the current version doesn't support because it will fail the whole process.
Oh, interesting. So yeah, it is included. It's just that we have to in Hive specify that this test should run with the Spark hard fork and configure something like that. So something that I can probably look into.
So we'll probably have to. Is that like a per test configuration, or do we need to put these tests in a different location from the current set of tests?
No, basically, it is per simulation. So it's for all the tests together. So if we activate prog, then it means that basically all of the test results are changing. So I would not do it right now, actually thinking about it now. We should probably do it closer to the hard fork to make sure that all the clients will still work together after prog is activated.
So maybe once we're into public testnets?
Yes.
Okay. Is there an ETA on when people think public testnets are going to land? I'm guessing Q1 sometime.
That's my best guess.
Okay.
Any updates for the people? I made the modification that the timestamp is now the 12 seconds on mainnet, but it also depends on the network. So the other folks should not include the 12 seconds, but something else. And then I wrote that blog post about how you can replace a function in any contract, which I think is quite cool feature that I didn't think was possible before. Like when we were thinking that with Micah, then we thought that maybe we cannot do that stuff at all, but then we figured out that kind of proxy pattern where you can replace a single function in a contract, which is a kind of very cool feature of each simulate.
Agreed, it was a cool trick. As for me, I am not a lot to report, so I guess now I will post the PR for changing the timestamp to 12 seconds.
Does Rohit have updates?
Yeah, hi everyone. Yes, I do. For other errors that I was getting, I fixed it. Right now, I am working on. Actually, I can see that all of the blocks number that I'm getting in the response starts from 1 for my case, but for the test side starts from 21, or in hexadecimal it's 0x15. So I don't know. I'm figuring out why it happens. And also, there is some mismatch in block numbers as well from our case. So I'm fixing that.
Okay. Have you been getting more block hashes to match? I guess in the block number or the timestamp is different. Then don't probably explain a lot of the bugs, but
Yeah, probably that case. Because of the different block numbers, the block hashes are blocks will not match anyway.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Sounds
first
good.
I'll fix. Yeah, first I'll fix this. numbers mismatch.
Yeah.
But do you have any reason why the test the block starts from 015 0x15?
That's because there's specification for what is the kind of what are the in the Hive you can specify what is the network that the tests are run, and then there's a couple of blocks and some test data initially there, so then you can test against that. So the tests are not starting from the genesis, but well, you have even then you have to specify that what is the genesis block, and then run test against that.
Yeah, for our case, Genesis block number is, I mean, Genesis is going to be always 0, but from where determines always starts.
I think in Hive there's like 10 blocks, and then the tests start from that. I think Sina pulled that the testing error. I don't remember where you could get that, but there's a specification of what's in the blockchain. Let me try to find it.
So basically, the blocks 1 through n are essentially kind of filling up some initial state in the blockchain, and then our tests are built on top of those.
Yeah, that's right.
And where I can find the spec of these states and the initial states, I mean the configuration of these initial states.
Do you remember, Sina, where was that?
Yes. Let me find a link.
But somehow, in our case, when we are trying to find the first or the base block, we are always ending up getting Genesis block with block number 0.
Are you running the test with the Hive, or how?
Yeah, with Hive.
So your code is looking for block 15 or whatever, or 0x15, but it's not able to find that, and so it falls back to 0. Is that correct?
Probably, let me see the code. Where is it? Yeah, it searches for block even in the block parameter.
Or for some reason you are using the Genesis state.
Yeah, might be.
So two things. One, definitely we need to figure out why you're not finding the right block. Two, if the RPC call queries for a block and that block does not exist, you should be returning an error. Do we have a test for that? If not, we probably should create one.
Test for what?
If just a test where someone tries to call the RPC method with a block that doesn't exist, and we get the same error back from all clients.
The block, I mean the block parameter, the base block from where we start.
Yeah. So you basically say, I want to simulate this on top of block 4000, but block 4000 doesn't exist, and so you should get an error. And so we should make sure that all the clients are returning the same error in that case. So we should have like one test for that.
We don't have any check for that in our implementation.
I think Nethermind just crashes at that and throws some very weird error for that.
Right, which is why we should get a test to make sure that we are all returning the same JSON RPC error.
It's about some root is not found or something like that.
Yeah, so we should make sure we get a test, especially if Nethermind is returning some obscure Stack Overflow.
No, it's no state available for block.
Is it a JSON RPC error?
No, the get just says invalid request. And then
are they both the same code?
No, they're different.
Okay, so we should create a Hive test and just decide what code you should return in that case and agree on it and make sure both are doing that. Hopefully that's a very easy test to write.
Yeah.
For my case, I'll check for the block parameters why I'm always getting 0. And even if we are getting the correct block parameter in the request or not.
Yeah, my best guess is there's something that's causing a fallback. Like if Nethermind can't find the block, it's falling back to 0. Or it could be, second best guess would be that just the code is kind of ignoring the base block parameter entirely and always using Genesis.
No, search for the base block through block finder. We have implementation of block finder, but it always
Okay.
might be falls back to the default one.
I see. So your block finder class maybe has a fallback.
Yes.
I see. Okay, so you'll need to check to make sure the block you found matches the block you asked for. If not, return an appropriate error. It seems easy enough to fix, hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah, that would explain a lot hashes if it's using the block 0 instead of the latest.
Yeah, that's why I'm always getting the parent hash mismatch as well for every block. And let me just fix this. We are also getting errors related to gas fees for a transaction.
Probably also related.
If you're using different parent block, then I would imagine that the gas fees are different, or the base fee is probably different.
Yeah,
The
base
parent
fee.
is wrong.
Okay, I'll try to fix it.
Yeah.
That's my break.
Have people been trying to think of what to do with the gas estimation stuff? For me, it feels like the simplest would be generate a new spec and create a multi-gas estimation, and then make that just return the gas estimates and not modify the current version of the ETH simulate.
I'm fine with that, but I would prefer to name it ETH Simulate V2 rather than ETH Estimate Gas. But otherwise, everything's the same.
For me, I wouldn't return anything else except the gas estimates, so I wouldn't return everything that the ETH simulate is returning.
I still feel
will go V2.
I still feel mildly strongly that we should not do that because it is so common to need the return data and the gas estimation in an app. And so we want apps to make less calls to the client, especially redundant ones where the client has to do the same work twice. So I think there needs to be at least one method that returns both the gas estimation and the results of the call, such as logs and everything.
Then I would call that V2.
Yeah. I mean, I'm okay with the V2 or calling that ETH Estimate Gas and just returning more than the gas. I have a mild preference for calling it V2, but I wouldn't block on either of them. I think even Interceptor would benefit from this significantly, right? Because we need to estimate gas and we need to present call results.
Yeah, and this probably would return us to get more accurate gas estimates. Like now we are just doing the one-shot way.
Yeah. So we get more accurate gas estimates without having to double our RPC load.
Yeah, that would require some modification from the Interceptor, but yeah, it would be possible.
Yeah, I mean, my hope is that we can basically just change, if in ETH call ETH simulate V2, we would just change the return result basically. And the return would now include a gas estimate. We might also want to add an option to make it that you can set this false by default. You can set it true that tells the client, hey, I would like to get that data. So that way, when all you're doing is a call and you don't care about the gas, gas estimation doesn't need to be done, which is mildly expensive. So
well, I would make it so that instead of setting the gas for transaction, you set gas to string like estimate, so that you could set it to be undefined or number or estimate string, kind of like how the block tag works.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
Then you would be really explicit that you want the estimate.
I'd be fine with that. Though I think doesn't Go or C# kind of struggle with union types, where you've got something that could be a number
block tag
or
is
a
like
string?
that already. Well, the block tag is already like that, so I don't know how it works underneath.
Yes, but does that cause pain for everybody?
Yeah, no.
That we could maybe not. I thought I remember one of the major clients. It's difficult, not impossible, but difficult to do union types, where you have some parameter on an object that could be a string or a number. Is that true in C# or Go?
I mean, yeah, we have some structure for it, and it works. It's probably not the most straightforward thing, but yeah, it's not too bad, I guess.
Okay.
I did want to jump in with something with regards to adding gas estimation to ETH simulate, and that's I think it would be good to get perspective from the providers here, because if they would go with a simple pricing of the high, like worst case scenario, then it would mean that estimate would be priced quite high. Even if
8x high.
even if users specify estimate gas as false. Like I don't know if they do it at that level.
Oh, I see. Your concern here is that a RPC provider might not be able to do pricing based on whether you pass true or false to a given RPC method. And so they would be forced to price it at the most expensive possible.
That's, basically.
I would add client parameter there that you can limit how many times it can run the estimate. And then for that case, you could maybe just limit to one, so that then it would mean that you could just estimate the gas price or the gas limit for one transaction at the time.
Well, it's not estimating gas for one transaction. It's just that you have to run a transaction. You estimate gas up to 8 times. Like if you're doing estimated gas on a transaction, it potentially could execute that same transaction 8 times.
Yeah, it would for that, but it wouldn't kind of estimate for 10 transactions at the time. So you could limit it to only do the estimation only once.
Right, but I'm saying like for like let's say Alchemy, for example, wants to do pricing, and they want to price ETH simulate. If a user can pass true to this parameter and cause their transactions to their queries to cost 8 times as much as someone who passes false, Alchemy is kind of forced to bill 8 times the cost for everybody, because if they don't have a way of distinguishing between what parameters the user provided, like if they can't bill on parameters, and so they'll have to charge everybody under the assumption that they're all going to execute everything 8 times internally, and so the cost for this would be high.
And how are they pricing them at the moment? Do they have some kind of like gas on their own, or how much computing power it was using, or is it each method are different? Yeah, this is something I should ask, I guess.
Yeah, that's the question. I think one option maybe the right option here is to actually just return the total operational gas used as a parameter or as a part of the result object. And so this would be a global value that includes all the gas used. It does not account for any refunds, so it's only it's strictly increasing every time you do something. And each time you're executing a transaction as part of a simulate, that's all accumulated. And so it would just be some number that just kind of is an indicator of how much work you put on the node. And since we already are accounting for that in the form of gas, we should be, I would hope, very easy to calculate that. And then if we put that in the return result, then providers have this new thing that they could bill on, which is just total gas spent on calls. And maybe that would actually make their lives significantly easier across the board, and allow them to do better, more precise billing in general.
Right.
It sounds for me quite complicated to add that to the gas calculations, but I don't know.
I think the clients already, one of the clients already does this, where they keep track of the total gas spent, and it's returned somewhere. I forget where. Maybe it's in the receipts or something. And so, and that's like the pre-refund amount. And so I know at least one of the clients, maybe all of them, track pre-refund values per transaction. And so my hope here is that all you have to do is just aggregate that across all the executions. But maybe I'm being optimistic.
Well, there's the global gas limit, but I don't know how that works in the clients. Can you add stuff there that in?
So I think the refunds are, since they are capped, it's fine if we also just include the refunds. But I'm just checking Alchemy's docs right now, and it does seem to be based on some kind of compute unit. And I'm trying to find now how that thing works.
Good luck. Anytime a service provider says we bill on compute units, it means we bill on hand-wavy stuff that we're never going to be able to explain to you.
It might be just how long the query took total or something like that.
It could be CPU time on the thread or something.
Yeah. Sina, how does the global gas limit work? Like each call and each simulate has it, and could we keep kind of adding to that global gas when we are doing the estimation?
That's a good point. I have to check if our estimate gas is using the same global cap as well. That's something I can check.
And also,
okay.
when you look into this, if you don't mind, can you also check to see if you have to run the transaction 4 times as part of an estimate? Does that accumulate 4 times as much gas as if you run it once, or does it accumulate it once?
Right. Yes, I can. Okay, so basically they have, so ETH call is 26 cost units.
Oh, they just flat out just say it's 26?
They just say it's 26. Interesting, they have a throughput CU that I think is related to bandwidth.
Is estimate gas the same as ETH call in terms of CPU units?
Estimate gas is cheaper.
What?
It used to be
But it
more.
returns less data.
It used to be 3 times more, but now they've discounted it to 20. I don't know. I don't get it. Like
It should be strictly more.
Yeah.
Well, it returns less data.
Yeah, I guess. If your compute units doesn't actually mean compute units, it actually means compute plus bandwidth, I suppose.
But even that doesn't feel that significant difference.
Yeah,
because it's the return data compared to the gas price or gas limit.
Right. So the trace methods are relatively cheap on compute and they're high on throughput. But interestingly, so here we can kind of see it. Like with the trace transaction, in Gas, you can specify 3 different kinds of tracers, all of which have different throughput or like bandwidth requirements, and yet they are pricing it all the same. So it's 1,000 cost unit for any tracer.
So it sounds like they're just YOLOing more or less on these costs.
Yeah, kind of.
And so, assuming the other providers are similar, maybe we can still involve them, and I'm a big fan of getting anyone involved who wants to be. But if they're not interested in participating, I think my vote would be to just see how hard it would be to just calculate the total accumulated gas cost over a transaction, return it, and that way, should one of the providers in the future want to stop YOLOing and actually do a calculation, we give them the number and they can do it. And if they don't use it, hopefully it's not too much code complication.
I mean, we do have somebody from Alchemy in our chat, so we could just shoot a message.
Oh. Yeah, in the Telegram.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah,
I'm also Tenderly, because they do have this estimate gas bundle.
What about the each simulate tracing version? That's also something that would also calculate the gas, I guess, if we want to make that kind of version as well. And I don't know if I guess adding the gas estimation stuff to the tracing API, then it would be even heavier whether if you had the tracing and the gas estimation there.
It depends. But yes. I mean, if you want to add everything to the same method, I mean, it doesn't sound like the best idea.
I mean, that's basically how graph something works, right? Everything's in one method, and you just define what you want out.
No, they have a nice query language for it.
That's true. They do give you a nice query language for it. So clearly, ETH simulate V2 or V3. We should invent a query language, implement it.
Exactly, that's where I was going with this. Okay, I'm
maybe you could write that with Solidity. You could write any code and you could run it, and we could just add new methods to it to the Solidity. You can query different state of the database.
So we're gonna write query language, but it's gonna be Solidity based.
Yeah.
for graph based querying.
Okay. Anyway, don't want to hog this whole thing. I'm trying to find the prices of Tenderly, but haven't had any luck. I will continue to check, but I just wanted to raise the point that this might be something that we should take into account for deciding whether to include estimate gas in ETH Simulate or have it as a separate method.
I'm not totally opposed to doing a separate method as long as the separate method also returns all the results that ETH_call does. And so then providers could charge more for ETH simulate.
That's fine, because it's, I mean, my intuition was that estimate guess is much more expensive and should cost more. Like, I'm totally surprised now by seeing this thing from Alchemy. But then, like, if we have the more expensive, like, we are already doing the computation in estimate gas, and we might as well just return all the results. So that's fair.
For me, the annoying thing is that if you are calling it estimate gas something, then it actually returns everything. So then then it's in a way kind of just superior method than ETH simulate one is.
I guess
that
it would
sounds kind of like conflicting or kind of confusing.
Yeah, I guess it would be like ETH simulate and poor man's version of ETH simulate.
I think I agree. It's a strictly superior method if you are cost agnostic. If you are not cost agnostic, then ETH simulate without the gas is actually cheaper. Like if you're either running your own RPC server and paying for it.
But that's not. You can, as a user, you can still kind of it would be cost exactly the same if you are not using the gas estimate ability.
Yeah, because Alchemy YOLOs with their pricing.
No. I mean, if you are just calling it normally and you are never using the gas estimation, it would cost exactly the same and it would operate exactly the same as well. It's just missing a feature.
No, I'm saying if we made it so ETH simulate estimate gas returned all the results that ETH simulate did plus the gas estimate versus ETH simulate v1 or v2 or whatever only returns the results and no estimate gas, ETH simulate would be computationally less expensive to execute because it doesn't have to do the gas estimation process, which is very expensive on the server. And so if you are ambivalent to the cost of your queries, then you're right, ETH estimate gas is better. But if you care about performance or you're running your own server, so you're paying for your own hardware or whatever, or you actually care about how much load you're putting on the server, then not estimating gas in situations where you don't need the estimate is superior.
But you are just limiting the user in this because if the user if you are using your own node in a way and you know what kind of queries you are making to it, then you should always use the estimate gas because it's just more powerful method.
Yes,
it costs the same.
You're running, no, it doesn't cost the same. That's what I'm saying.
It costs the same if you're not using the estimation.
No, if you're not using, if you call ETH estimate gas in this hypothetical where we make a new method, if you call the ETH simulate estimate, it would actually do gas estimation. So it would run the transaction multiple times. If you call ETH simulate, it would only run the transaction once. And so the computational cost on the server is lower for ETH simulate than it is for ETH estimate gas.
But are you saying that you cannot use the estimate ETH estimate without specifying the gas limits?
Oh, I'm suggesting
I wouldn't make it like that.
If we split the methods, I feel like ETH simulate should always simulate because it's literally in the name. There should not be an option for turning it off. You will get simulations no matter what. Or sorry, you'll get estimations no matter what. If we put them both in the same method, like ETH simulate v2 or something, then I do think we should have an option for turning it on or off.
Oh, I wouldn't do it like that because if you have transaction stack of 3 transactions, and you only want to estimate the last transaction, then I wouldn't estimate all of those 3 because then it would modify those initial 2 transactions.
I see. So you're saying like in our case for Interceptor, for example, we're adding things to the stack iteratively. And so we generally only need to estimate the most recent one, and then we save that client side, and we don't want to estimate all the other ones every time.
Yeah, and I would imagine many other cases as well, you might have transactions that you cannot modify yourself.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. And so you're saying if we made it per transaction gas estimation, so when you do ETH simulate estimate, you would say which transactions you wanted to estimate, and you could give it an empty set, in which case it is now just ETH simulate v1.
Exactly, yeah. That's why I'm saying it's superior method.
All around, yeah. Yeah, okay, that's a good point. User. I didn't consider that. I am convinced to be back in the camp ETH simulate v2.
And if the node provider, I also think that we should just add it to the ETH simulate and then add it to the global gas calculation. So then it shouldn't be making the method any heavier. because it would be always limited by the gas amount. Of course, maybe you would generate kind of more gas-heavy transaction, but it would be always limited by the global gas limit.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. Like I said, I'd have a preference for returning the total amount of gas used across the whole simulation, just if that's easy in the clients, so that way providers have a way to bill on it if they want.
But then if you make a V2 method and it's heavier for the providers, then it's a bit annoying that people will be continuing with the V1 and V2, and it's in a way V2 wouldn't be exactly superior to V1 in that sense if the providers are pricing them differently.
Right, which is kind of, I think, a good argument for why we should give the providers a way to price more reasonably by returning, as part of the result set, a total gas used. I can't guarantee, of course, that the providers actually use it, but I think it'd be nice if we at least gave them the tools.
I'm wondering that we don't need to do that if we have had the gas calculation for the simulation or the estimation part, and then I think the V2 would be kind of just better approach.
Well, so ideally, providers would be charging based on actual computational cost. They wouldn't just have a flat rate for all ETH calls, because not all ETH calls are the same whatsoever. There are ETH calls that are extremely cheap, like simple ETH transfers, and there are ETH calls that are extremely expensive, but some of the providers, at least Alchemy, are charging just a flat rate. And so by giving them the total gas spent, we're giving them a way to charge more reasonable fees. They may not choose to use it. They may still just charge a flat rate for everything because they think it's simpler, or they think users will like it better, or whatever. But at least they have the option of charging something reasonable. Right now, they don't really have any good options. Like, they could do things like, monitor the CPU usage, but that gets really hard when you have a massively multi-threaded application. It's got 500 concurrent users. It's very hard to keep track of which user is doing what at any given point in time. And so this would just kind of be a mechanism that would allow them to change their pricing scheme to something better in the future. Kind of optimistically hoping that people take the opportunity. If they don't, then I agree. Kalari is right that if they just continue to do flat rate, then it could be problematic.
But yeah, it would be interesting to find out why currently the estimation is so cheap compared to the ETH call. It could be that in the ETH call, people in general make heavier calls than with the simulation, and that's why they have that kind of heuristic, and that's why it works kind of that they can have discounted it.
Yeah, maybe they're looking at like averages over time.
Yeah,
and they're kind of seeing that people are spending more time in ETH call versus ETH estimate gas, so let's drop the ETH estimate gas. And that's because people are doing things like Uniswap queries, quote queries, which are insanely expensive using ETH call, but ETH simulate is always like something fairly reasonable and gas optimized. Ugh, okay, yeah, I see it.
Yeah, Uniswap makes huge ETH calls, for example, to query all the balance of all the pools.
Yeah, crashes our server every time someone uses HorseSwap.
Anyway, I guess the summary here is that we should be asking node providers what they want. Can you Sina ask around about it?
I can ask. Wait.
And it would be interesting to know why the estimate gas is so cheap.
Yeah, I am interested. I'm wondering if it also has some. Yeah, I mean, I guess what you guys said, like just probably based on statistics. But wondering also like recent changes to estimate gas made this discount possible, because the docs clearly state that it was more, and then now like they strike through that number to put the new number, so something changed. Yeah, I am curious what.
My guess is that they heard that Go Ethereum and another mine changed their gas estimation algorithm. Then they went and did an evaluation. They're like, oh, we're way overcharging for ETH estimate gas. Let's fix that. But their evaluation had nothing to do with your guys' change. It just had to do with the fact they probably never actually ran the statistics previously. And so they end up using the statistical method. And then they're like, oh, ETH estimate gas is always cheaper on average, so we'll charge less. And so all your guys' gas changes did is just cause someone to go look.
Isn't this an arbitrage that we should now modify all the applications to use the estimate gas, and then we need to find some kind of trick how with the estimate the gas amount we can kind of get the same information?
Oh, that's devious. So if you need, so if you want to do a price quote on Uniswap, what you do is you do the price quote, but it's inside an ETH estimate gas, and the price quote's value is returned by burning gas until you reach a certain target, and then the number that you want out is just embedded in the gas.
Exactly.
And so you just grind out huge amounts of gas on the server, burning it down so you can get your save a little bit of money on that call. That's good. I like that. Maybe we should update HorseSwap to use ETH estimate gas for everything.
I guess the problem is that the estimate gas, the variable is not very long what it returns. Like with the ETH call, you can return quite a lot of data.
It's 256 bits. You can cram a bunch of stuff in there. 32 bytes.
But there's the global gas limit you are hitting.
Yeah, I guess you got to do it under the global gas limit. That's fair, which is like 100 million. So I guess it only works if your number fits in 100 million or less.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Signa said it was actually significantly cheaper. You just run it multiple times. I'd say this is the first time. Give me the first time n bits, and then run it again. Give me the second n bits, run a third time. Give me a third n bits, and you're still cheaper than ETH call.
But it was 3 times cheaper, so you can run it 3 times.
However much cheaper it is, you can, it's an optimization for the golfers to use it.
Very little cheaper, but still.
Oh, just a little bit? Okay.
26 versus 20.
Oh, okay.
But if you need kind of only small number, then it's kind of better to do it like that.
Yep.
Do we have anything else?
I don't.
Not from my side.
Does Rohit have anything?
Working on the number mismatch right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, talk to you next week.